The sound of the arena was like thunder. Thousands of alien voices echoed from the stone walls, a roar of excitement and bloodlust. The sky above was a dome of shifting light, casting strange shadows on the pit below. Dust rose from the ground as the gates creaked open, and from the darkness stepped a figure unlike the others. A human. His wrists bore the marks of chains, though they had been removed before the fight. His body was bruised, scarred from past beatings, yet his stance was steady. He had no weapon, no armor, only his bare hands. The crowd laughed, their alien faces twisted with mockery. "This one will not last a minute," someone jeered. "Crush him quickly," shouted another. But the human's eyes were calm, burning with something the aliens did not understand. He was not fighting for glory. He was fighting for survival. Across from him, 3 alien warriors stepped forward. Their bodies were massive, covered in scaled armor. Each carried a blade that glowed with heat. They were bred for battle, trained from birth. To them, this was sport. The horn sounded. The first warrior charged, his blade slicing through the air. The human dodged, the weapon missing him by inches. He stepped in close, his fist slamming into the alien's jaw. The crowd gasped as the warrior stumbled, blood spraying from his mouth. The second came from behind, but the human spun, his elbow cracking against the alien's ribs. The sound of breaking bone echoed in the arena. The third swung his blade down, but the human caught his wrist, twisted, and drove his knee into the warrior's chest. With a roar, the alien collapsed into the dust. The crowd fell silent. Then they screamed louder than before. Cheers, curses, disbelief. It all blended into chaos. No one had expected the fragile human to fight like this. Above, in the royal box, the alien warrior princess watched closely. She was known across the empire as fierce, proud, and untouchable. Her armor gleamed in the light, silver and violet, engraved with symbols of victory. Her hair fell like black silk across her shoulders, her crown glinting faintly. Her golden eyes followed every move in the arena, unblinking. When the human raised his fist again, ready for more, she leaned forward slightly. Her lips parted, but no one heard her voice over the roar of the crowd, except the guard at her side. "He should be my husband," she whispered. The guard stiffened, shocked. "My princess." But her eyes never left the pit. She had seen countless warriors fight. Alien generals, trained assassins, men who boasted of strength. But none had fought like this human. His courage was not born of pride, but of survival. His strength was not in weapons, but in will. Down below, the human stood alone, surrounded by fallen bodies. His chest heaved with breath. His fists were bloody, but his eyes still burned with defiance. He looked up at the crowd, and for the briefest moment, his gaze met hers. And in that moment, the warrior princess knew this was no ordinary slave. This was destiny. The roar of the arena still echoed in the human's ears when the fight ended. His body ached, his knuckles bled, and his chest burned from every breath. But he was still standing. The fallen alien warriors lay in the dust around him, groaning in defeat. Guards rushed in, their armor glowing faintly under the strange lights. They did not cheer for him. They grabbed his arms roughly and dragged him away, their claws digging into his skin. The crowd howled with anger and disbelief, throwing objects into the pit as the gates closed behind him. He expected darkness, another cell, perhaps punishment for humiliating their warriors. But instead, the guards led him through wide corridors carved from black stone, lit by silver torches that flickered like stars. His bare feet slapped against the cold floor as he stumbled, but they never slowed. At last, they reached a towering set of doors. With a deep groan, the metal slabs opened, revealing the throne room of the alien empire. It was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. Tall windows let in pale golden light from the twin suns outside. The floor gleamed like polished glass, reflecting the banners of conquered worlds that hung from the walls. At the far end, upon a throne carved from crystal, sat the alien warrior princess. She was no longer just a distant figure in a royal box. Up close, her presence was overwhelming. Her armor shimmered with violet and silver, her black hair cascaded like silk, and her golden eyes burned with quiet fire. She sat with perfect stillness, every inch the daughter of kings and conquerors. The human was forced to his knees before her. Though he strained against the guard's grip, he would not bow willingly. For a long moment, silence filled the hall. The nobles and generals who stood along the sides whispered behind jeweled masks, their alien voices full of scorn. Finally, the princess spoke. Her voice was calm, smooth, and commanding. "Leave us." The guards hesitated, glancing at each other. "My princess." Her eyes narrowed, and their glowing armor seemed to dim under her gaze. "Do not make me repeat myself." At once, the guards bowed and withdrew, dragging the doors closed until the hall was silent again. Only she and the human remained. The man lifted his head, his chest still heaving, his fists still red from battle. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. The princess rose from her throne, her movements graceful and deliberate. She descended the steps slowly, each step echoing across the chamber. When she stood before him, she looked down, her golden eyes meeting his defiant gaze. "I watched you fight," she said softly. He clenched his jaw, and her lips curved ever so slightly. "And I have never seen anyone fight like you, bare-handed, against trained warriors. You should have been broken, but you endured." The man spat to the side. "I fight to live. That's all." "Perhaps," she said, circling him slowly, her armor whispering against the floor. "But there was more. You did not fight only with your body. You fought with your will. My generals fight with pride. My soldiers fight with fear. But you," she paused behind him, "you fought with something I cannot name." He turned his head just enough to glare at her. Humans call it spirit. Her golden eyes glowed brighter, intrigued. "Spirit," she repeated, as if tasting the word. Before he could reply, the doors burst open again. A group of generals stormed inside, their robes heavy with medals, their faces twisted with outrage. "My princess," one barked, bowing stiffly. "Why is this slave brought before you? He is beneath your notice." Another snarled, pointing at the human. "He is dangerous. He humiliated our warriors. He must be executed before he corrupts your name." The hall filled with mutters of agreement. "Kill him. Crush him. Feed him to the beasts." The princess raised her hand. Instantly, the voices died. Her golden gaze swept the room, silencing even the boldest general. "No," she said, her voice ringing like steel. "He will not die." Gasps filled the chamber. The generals looked at one another in disbelief. The princess stepped forward, placing herself between the human and her court. "This human is mine. He will not be touched. He will not be chained. From this moment, he belongs to me." The hall erupted with shouts. Some nobles cried out in outrage, others in fear. Never before had a royal claimed a human. Not as a slave, not as a warrior, and certainly not as a chosen one. The human's eyes widened. He had expected death, not protection. His fists clenched, unsure if he had traded one prison for another. The princess ignored the chaos around her. She turned her head slightly, her golden eyes softening for only a heartbeat as she looked at him. "They will not understand," she said quietly. "But I do." Then she raised her voice, sharp and commanding once more. "Take him to my chambers. He will answer only to me." The guards rushed forward again, their movements uncertain, as if afraid of what they had just witnessed. They seized the human's arms, but this time their grip was careful, almost respectful. As he was led away, the noble's whispers followed like venom. "She is mad. She is weak. She defies our laws." But the human heard only one thing, the words she had spoken in the arena, now confirmed in the throne room. He should be my husband. And for the first time since his capture, he wondered if his fight for survival had just become something far greater. The chamber given to the human was not a cell. It was far from it. The walls were lined with glowing crystal, the floor covered in soft rugs from distant worlds, and food was placed on a low table beside a bed large enough for a king. Yet when the guards left him alone and the heavy doors shut, he did not feel free. He paced the floor like a caged animal, his fists clenched, his thoughts tangled. He had expected chains. He had expected death. Instead, he was given comfort, and it unsettled him more than the cold iron ever had. When the doors opened again, he spun quickly, and there she was. The alien warrior princess stepped into the room, her armor gone, replaced by a flowing robe of deep violet that shimmered in the light. Her black hair fell loose around her shoulders, and her golden eyes burned like embers in the dim glow. She carried no weapons, but her presence alone was sharper than any blade. The human's chest tightened. She was beautiful, but dangerous, like fire dress in silk. "You're not supposed to be here," he said roughly. Her lips curved faintly. "This is my palace. I go where I wish." He scowled. "Then why come to me?" She stepped closer, her movements slow, deliberate, as if she were circling prey. "Because I want to see what makes you different." He stood his ground, though his heart beat hard. "I'm not different. I'm just a man who refuses to die quietly." "Exactly," she said softly, her golden eyes locking with his. "That is what none of my warriors understand. They fight for glory, for power, for pride. You fight for life itself. And in that, you are stronger than all of them." His jaw tightened. "I didn't ask for your praise." "No," she admitted, tilting her head slightly. "But you have it all the same." Silence stretched between them. The girl from Earth would have bowed, begged for mercy. But this man, he looked at her with defiance, as though he were her equal. And strangely, instead of anger, she felt her chest stir with something unfamiliar. She reached out, letting her fingers brush against the bruises on his arm. "You fought barehanded. Do you know what they call that here?" He pulled his arm back. "Desperation." Her lips curved again, sharper this time. "Spirit." His eyes narrowed. "Don't twist my words. I'm no one symbol. Not yours. Not theirs." The princess circled him once more, her robe whispering against the floor. "You resist me. That is new. You expect me to bow," he shot back. "I expect everyone to bow," she answered simply. "Well, I won't," he said, his voice steady. She stopped in front of him, so close he could feel the warmth of her skin, the faint glow of her markings. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then her voice dropped, soft but sharp enough to cut. "Then perhaps that is why I want you." His breath caught. "Want me?" Her golden eyes burned brighter. "Yes, not as a slave, not as a warrior, as something else." His chest tightened. He had heard rumors of these aliens, their cruelty, their lust, their hunger for power. Was this another trap? Or was there something real in her voice? Something even she did not understand? "You don't know what you're saying," he muttered. She leaned closer, her lips near his ear, her whisper like fire. "I know exactly what I'm saying. You should be mine." He stiffened, his fists clenching. Part of him wanted to shove her away, to spit at her and curse. But another part, a dangerous part, felt the weight of her words sink deep. He had never been claimed like this. Not by fear, not by desire. When she finally pulled back, her golden eyes softened, just slightly. "You will not bow to me. Good. That is what I want. I have no need for another servant. I want a man who will stand, even against me." He swallowed hard. "You'll be disappointed then, because I'll stand against you every time." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Then we will see which of us breaks first." With that, she turned and left, her robe sweeping the floor behind her. The doors closed with a heavy thud, leaving him alone once more. The human sank onto the edge of the bed, his fists still trembling. He hated her arrogance. He hated her power. And yet, his mind replayed her words again and again. "You should be mine." For the first time since his capture, he felt fear, not of death, but of something far more dangerous. Desire. The palace was alive with whispers. In long halls where golden light spilled through tall windows, nobles gathered in clusters, their jeweled robes rustling as they bent close to one another. Their voices were low but sharp, hissing like snakes in the dark. The princess brings a human into her chambers. She shields him from judgment. She defies tradition. Our ancestors would never allow this shame. Servant overheard. Guards exchanged glances, and generals clenched their jaws. The story of the arena had spread far beyond the palace walls. The human who fought barehanded and lived. The human who stood before the princess and refused to bow. The human who now lingered at her side like a shadow that would not leave. And the most shocking rumor of all, that the warrior princess herself had whispered he should be her husband. By the time the news reached the outer city, it was no longer just whispers. Some laughed at the foolishness of their royal heir. Others growled that she had betrayed her bloodline. And some, just a few, wondered if it meant change. Inside the palace, the tension only grew. One evening, the human was escorted to the gardens by 2 silent guards. The air smelled of strange flowers that glowed faintly in the moonlight, and fountains bubbled with water that shimmered like liquid silver. Yet he felt no peace here. Every alien eye that glanced his way carried suspicion, hatred, or fear. When he returned to his chamber, he found her waiting. The warrior princess stood by the window, her armor glinting under the twin moons. She did not turn as he entered, but her voice was steady. "They whisper about us." He folded his arms. "Then send me back to the arena. Let them whisper about my death instead." She turned then, her golden eyes fierce. "No, I will not give them your blood." He met her gaze without flinching. "And why not? What am I to you, really? A symbol? A trophy? A pet you parade in front of your nobles?" Her jaw tightened. "Do not mistake me for them. I do not keep you for their amusement." "Then why?" he demanded, stepping closer. "You could kill me with a word, and yet you protect me. You confuse me, princess. You confuse everyone." She studied him in silence. Then, almost too softly to hear, she said, "Because you are the first I cannot command." The word struck him harder than any blade. He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, the doors burst open. 3 generals strode inside, their heavy boots striking the floor. They bowed quickly, but their eyes burned with anger. "My princess," one said, his voice hard, "we come with grave concern." "You enter unbidden," she replied coldly. "Our loyalty gives us the right," another insisted. "The nobles speak openly now. They say you are unfit to rule, that you are blinded by a slave." His eyes shifted to the human, full of contempt. "This creature weakens you." The human straightened, his fist tightening, but he held his tongue. The princess's eyes narrowed, golden fire flashing. "Choose your words carefully." The 3rd general stepped forward, bold with desperation. "If you continue down this path, rebellion will rise. Already, there are meetings in secret halls. Already, they plot to remove you. We beg you, end this madness before it consumes us all. Cast them out. Prove you are still worthy of your crown." The silence that followed was heavy. The human's heart pounded. He expected her to deny them, to lash out, maybe even to strike them down. But instead, she walked slowly back to the window, staring out at the glowing city below. At last she spoke. Her voice was calm, but every word was sharp as steel. "If they rise against me, let them come. I will break them as I have broken armies before." The general stiffened. "And the human?" one asked. Her golden eyes turned back toward the man. She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "He stays," she said finally. The generals erupted in protest, their voices clashing like thunder, but her hand lifted, silencing them instantly. "I am your princess," she declared. "Your oaths bind you to my command. Leave now, before I forget my patience." Reluctantly, they bowed, their jaws clenched, their anger barely hidden. Then they left, their footsteps echoing down the hall. When the doors closed again, the human let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You've made enemies," he said quietly. "I was born with enemies," she replied, her eyes still burning. "But this time, the danger is greater. They will not stop with whispers. They will move against me, against us." The human frowned. "Then why protect me? Why put yourself at risk?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped close, so close he could feel the heat of her skin, the faint glow of her markings. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because when I saw you fight, when I saw you stand with nothing but your fists, I saw a strength that my world has forgotten. I saw the man I could stand beside, the man I could trust, the man I could—" She stopped herself, her golden eyes flickering. His chest tightened. "The man you could what?" Her voice was almost too soft. "The man I could love." The words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Outside, the palace walls trembled with rebellion brewing in silence. And inside, the princess and the human stood face to face, bound now not by chains, but by something far more dangerous. The palace walls trembled with unrest. By day, the halls looked calm. Guards stood at their posts, nobles bowed, servants moved silently. But beneath the polished stone, tension coiled like a snake ready to strike. The princess's defiance had lit a fire, and her people were fanning it into flames. Whispers turned to plots. Plots turned to plans. And soon, a trap was set. One morning, the human was woken by guards who did not speak. Their grips were firm, their faces hidden behind steel masks. They led him through unfamiliar corridors until the air grew hot, and the walls glowed with crimson light. The sound of grinding stone echoed ahead. When the gates opened, he found himself once again in an arena. But this one was different. The floor was made of black stone cracked with fire, molten rivers glowing between the slabs. Chains hung from towering pillars, and the smell of smoke and ash filled his lungs. Above, balconies brimmed with nobles and generals, their jeweled robes glittering as they leaned forward to watch. At the highest seat sat the alien warrior princess. Her golden eyes burned with fury, but her face was unreadable. The human's fists clenched. He knew this was no ordinary fight. The horn sounded. From the gates across the arena, massive beasts lumbered out. Their bodies were covered in scales like armor, their jaws lined with jagged teeth. They were bred for one purpose: death. Behind them came alien warriors carrying spears tipped with burning crystal. The trial was clear: survive or be destroyed. The crowd erupted with cheers. Many shouted for blood, their voices echoing like thunder. Kill the human. End the weakness. The human stood alone. No weapon, no shield, only his hands, his strength, and his will. The first beast roared, charging with molten saliva dripping from its jaws. The human darted aside, rolling across the cracked stone as the creature slammed into a pillar, shaking the arena. Dust rained down as the crowd howled. A warrior lunged, thrusting his burning spear. The human caught the shaft, his palm searing from the heat, and wrenched it free. With a roar, he swung the weapon in a wide arc, striking the warrior across the chest and sending him crashing into flames. Above, the princess's hands tightened on the railing. She could not interfere, not here, not now. This was no simple duel. This was a test arranged by those who wanted him gone. She knew it. He knew it. And if he failed, they would call it fate. The second beast lunged, claws scraping across the stone. The human spun, driving the spear deep into its throat. Hot blood sprayed across his arms, burning his skin, but he did not let go. He pulled the weapon free as the beast collapsed in a trembling heap. The crowd roared again, half in rage, half in awe. The last beast circled him, its eyes glowing with fire. It was larger than the others, its body covered in scars from countless battles. With a deafening roar, it charged. The human dropped the spear. He did not think. He moved. He met the beast head-on, ducking under its claws, slamming his fist into its jaw with a crack that echoed across the arena. The creature reeled, stunned by the raw force. Again and again, the human struck, barehanded, his knuckles splitting his muscles, screaming. He fought not with weapons, not with training, but with the fury of a man who refused to die. At last, with a final strike, the beast collapsed, its body shaking the ground as it fell. The arena fell silent. The human stood over the fallen creature, his chest heaving, his fists dripping blood. His body was torn, burned, and bruised, but he was alive. He lifted his head and stared up at the crowd, his eyes burning with defiance. And then, slowly, he looked at the princess. For the first time, she did not hide her reaction. She rose to her feet, her golden eyes bright with pride. She placed her hand over her chest, a silent gesture that carried across the arena. "I see you." The crowd gasped. Nobles whispered furiously. Generals exchanged sharp glances. They had planned for his death. Instead, he had triumphed. Again, the horns sounded to end the trial. Guards rushed in to collect the bodies of the fallen, but none dared approach the human too quickly. He walked out on his own, bloody but unbroken, his head high. That night, the palace shook with new whispers. Some said the human was cursed. Others said he was chosen. Some claimed the princess had bewitched him, while others muttered that he had bewitched her. But all agreed on one thing. The trial had not destroyed him. It had made him more dangerous than ever. And for the first time, some of the people whispered not of rebellion, but of destiny. The palace throne room was colder than usual that morning. Torches burned low, shadows stretched long, and the air carried the weight of judgment. The nobles lined the walls, their jeweled robes whispering as they shifted, waiting for the arrival of their king. The generals stood rigid, their faces grim, their eyes hard. And in the center of the hall, guarded and unarmed, stood the human. His body still bore the marks of the trial of fire. Cuts across his arms, burns on his skin, and bruises that darkened with every breath. Yet he stood tall, his shoulders squared, his eyes steady. He refused to bow, even now. The great doors opened. The alien king entered, a figure as imposing as the palace itself. His armor was black as the void, edged with silver. His crown curved upward like jagged blades. His presence filled the hall with silence. His golden eyes, colder than his daughter's, swept the room before landing on the human. The man's heart pounded, but he did not flinch. The king's voice rolled like thunder. This human has survived where he should have died. He has defeated warriors, beasts, and trials. And now his presence divides my court, weakens my house, and stains my bloodline. His eyes narrowed. This ends today. A murmur of approval rippled through the nobles. The generals bowed their heads. From the side of the throne, the princess stepped forward. She wore her battle armor again, violet and silver gleaming in the torchlight. Her hair pulled back like a warrior ready for war. Her golden eyes met her father's. "No," she said firmly. The hall froze. The king's gaze sharpened. "You defy me, daughter?" She raised her chin. "I protect what I choose." The nobles gasped. The generals shifted uneasily. The human's chest tightened, but he stayed silent, knowing this was no fight of fists. It was a battle of wills. The king descended the steps, each stride echoing like a drumbeat. He stopped before the human, towering over him. "You are nothing," the king growled. "A slave, a beast, a mistake. You will die today, and your memory will be erased." The human's jaw tightened. "Then kill me. But know this, I will die standing. I will not beg. I will not kneel. Not to you, not to anyone." The hall erupted in murmurs again, some in shock, some in anger. The king's hand tightened on the hilt of his blade, but before he could draw it, the princess stepped between them. Her voice was steady, but her eyes blazed. "If you kill him, you will kill me too." The hall fell silent. The king stared at her, his golden eyes burning with fury. "You dare speak such words?" She did not waver. "I do." The nobles whispered furiously. "She has lost her mind. She betrays her blood. She curses a crown." The king's voice shook with rage. "He bewitched you. This weak creature cannot be your equal." The princess's voice cut through the hall like steel. "He is no weak creature. He is stronger than your generals, braver than your nobles, and truer than your throne." The human stared at her, his chest tight, his throat dry. He had never asked for this. Yet hearing her voice, fierce and unyielding, he felt something stirred deep inside him. The king's hand trembled with wrath. But the princess did not back away. She drew her own blade, the silver edge gleaming under the light. "If you strike him," she warned, "you'll strike through me first." The hall was frozen in disbelief. No one had ever seen the princess defy her father. No one had ever seen her stand with anyone, let alone a human. The king's fury burned, but he knew what the sight meant. To kill his daughter in front of his people would shatter his rule more than any rebellion. To strike the human now would risk losing his heir. Finally, he lowered his hand, his voice sharp with venom. "Then you are no daughter of mine. You have chosen your path. Let the galaxy judge you." With a wave of his cloak, he turned and strode out of the hall, his generals following, their faces pale with shock. The nobles whispered louder than ever, some furious, some fearful, some curious. The human stood motionless, his heart racing, his fists clenched. The princess turned to him slowly. Her golden eyes softened, though her voice was still steady. Do you see now? You are no longer just a man fighting for survival. You are the choice I made. He swallowed hard. And the cost? She exhaled slowly. Everything. The palace did not sleep that night. Whispers filled the halls, louder than ever. Nobles argued in corners. Generals sharpened their blades, and servants carried rumors like wildfire. The princess had defied her father. She had shielded a human. And now, the empire stood on the edge of chaos. In the human's chamber, silence weighed heavy. He sat on the edge of the bed, his body bruised but his spirit unbroken. Across from him, the princess stood by the window, staring out at the city below. The towers of crystal shimmered under the twin moons, but flames already burned in the distance. The people were rising. They will come for us, the human said quietly. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. Let them. He shook his head. This isn't my fight. Your people hate me. They'll kill me before they ever accept me. She turned, her voice sharp. You survived their arena. You survived their beasts. You faced my father and did not kneel. Do you not see? That is why they fear you, and why some will follow you. He stood, his fists tightening. And if I don't want to be their symbol? Her gaze softened. Then be mine. Before he could answer, a horn sounded in the distance. Then another. The walls trembled. Shouts echoed through the palace corridors. The rebellion had begun. The doors burst open. A loyal guard fell inside, his armor cracked, his voice desperate. Princess, the nobles and half the army rise against you. They march on the throne room. You must flee. No, she said firmly. She drew her sword, its silver edge blazing under the torchlight. I do not run. Not from them. The human stepped forward. Then I fight with you. The guard stared at him in shock. A human? But the princess silenced him with a glance. He is no longer just a human. He is my choice. Together, they strode into the halls as the sounds of battle grew. Flames lit the palace windows, and armored rebels stormed the corridors. The princess struck first, her blade flashing like lightning, cutting down traitors with every swing. The human fought beside her, bare-handed once more, his fists slamming into armored jaws, his elbows cracking ribs, his spirit burning brighter than any weapon. The rebels roared insults. She is weak. She defiles our bloodline. But with every strike, with every body that fell, those insults began to falter. Some rebels hesitated, staring at the man who would not fall, at the princess who fought at his side. At last, they burst into the throne room. Dozens of rebels surrounded them, the nobles screaming for blood. The princess raised her blade. You call me weak because I chose him, she shouted, her voice echoing off the crystal walls. But strength is not measured by bloodlines or crowns. Strength is in the will to fight, even when death is certain. And none have shown that more than this human. The human stepped forward, his chest heaving, his hands raw with blood. I never asked to be here. I never asked to fight for you. But I will not bow. I will not break. And if you think I'll die on my knees, you'll learn what a human truly is. The rebels charged. The battle was chaos. Steel clashed with fists. Fire roared against stone, and screams echoed through the hall. But together, the princess and the human stood like a storm. She fought with precision of a warrior born, her blade a blur of silver. He fought with raw fury, his bare hand striking harder than iron, his spirit unyielding. When the last rebel fell, the hall was silent. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. The nobles stared in shock. The princess lowered her sword, her golden eyes blazing. She turned to her people and raised her voice. Hear me, this human is no slave. He is no weakness. He is my chosen, my equal, my husband. Gasps erupted across the chamber. Some shouted in outrage. Others fell silent, uncertain. But a few, just a few, bowed their heads, not in fear but in respect. The human stood beside her, bruised and bloodied, but alive. He looked at her, his chest heavy with breath. "Husband," he murmured. She met his gaze, her lips curving into the faintest smile. "Yes, from this day forward." And though the empire would never be the same, though rebellion still burned and danger still lingered, one truth had already shaken the galaxy. The warrior princess had chosen a human, and nothing could undo it.